Alright, keeping it real, mind her how you feel when you find out that all that you believe in is a lie. Runaway slave got trapped after days, shots grazed him in the leg, now he bleeding at the thigh. Living on the block of the long lost souls, reading Dead Sea Scrolls and it's easy to supply. Spreading pessimism and depression and aggression like you won't make it out even if you try. But I gotta be one of them talented 10th, but the balance is twisted off, leaning to the side. How can I believe I last long enough, strong enough? Look at all the wrong stuff I'm feeding in my mind. Garbage, insanity, pornography, profanity, cussing in line and cheating all the time.
Another segment of Roundtable. I'm Michael Barclift here with Randy Brown, Elijah Morgano, and our guest speaker, young Mr. Elijah Coles Brown. You had mentioned when we spoke on the phone that one of your passions is education.
Yes, sir.
And you said you want to inspire people and you want to let people know the importance of early education.
Yes,
can you tell us a little bit about why that's so important to you?
Well, I feel like this is so important because not a lot of kids get early education. Not a lot of kids get these preschool opportunities. And I feel like it's very, very important because when kids get this early education, they can come into school knowing a little bit about what they're going to learn instead of having to go into school not knowing anything. And I feel like that's very important because with an education, you can get in so many places. So I feel like that's very important.
Now, the brother to your left is Mr. Elijah Morgano.
Yes.
All right. Now, could you tell us about your interaction with young Elijah and what position you play in his movement?
First and foremost, I'm so honored to be in the presence of greatness. I met Elijah several months ago at a panel, and I was just sharing this before the show, and he was on a panel with adults. And me being a speaker, when you see other speakers, you automatically go into critique mode. You listening for the ums. You're not doing it on purpose. It's innate in you. When I saw him speak, within 30 seconds, I had my cell phone out. And I was just floored by the professionalism and the delivery and just how he carried himself. And I told you, like, everybody we come in contact is for a reason. And I looked over to my wife and I told her, I was like, that's who I was supposed to be. And it was just ironic that both of our names is Elijah. Like, at this past weekend, we was at the Black Wax Museum, and there was like, the director was like, you're Elijah #2. I was like, I guess so. I guess so. I am Elijah #2.
Okay, and you're putting together a speaking tour?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
First and foremost, everybody has a testimony and a story. Mine is no different than anybody else. We grew up in impoverished society. My father was a drug kingpin. He spent 20 plus years in jail. I've only saw him a couple times up until the age of 27, and now he's out. So understanding the importance of male role models, male figures, especially in young African American lives, is huge. And I want to say 3 years ago, I was looking at 6 years in prison just because of my association and my ties to the streets. It was easier to get your hand on narcotics or a gun, or it's easier to manipulate women and womanize than to get your hand on some books or some education or some knowledge or some wisdom about those people that I just named: Steve Harvey, Napoleon Hill, Zig Ziglar. These people that have laid the foundation. So when I faced that moment, it took everything away from me. I couldn't work regular jobs. I got caught. And when you get caught, one or two things happen. You serve time or you get off, but things are different. Like, I can't get the regular jobs, not with a distribution charge on my record. So it put me in a position to really self-evaluate. And I really had to really dig deep. And the speaking, me sharing my testimony and my story was how I escaped. And I had that hustler's mentality. I had that grind mentality. Business school can't teach you how to grind. Business school can't teach you streets. But when you take that same energy and funnel it, and like he was saying with early childhood education, like, it's all about the youth right now. It's the youth and the boomers. If we bridge that gap between the youth and the boomers, big things can happen. So fast forward, I went through a lot of process, and we lost a social media marketing firm. I started writing the books because I wanted to share my stories. I look back on my life and I had mad stories to share. So that platform, I was like, you know what, there's other people like me. Like, I started the mobile university. Like, I started seeing all these people that making videos on YouTube and Instagram. So I started reaching out to them. I was like, look, we about to throw a regional tour, because this tour started at something that was just gonna be Richmond, DC, and Virginia Beach. And we was like, we're looking for speakers. But when you start operating in your purpose and you start knowing who you are, like Elijah knows who he is at 11 years old.
And and I just want to say something really quickly so you can continue. My mom always teaches me to know who I am and whose I am. So I just wanted to point that out, because
That's big.
my mom thinks it's very important, and I think it's very important.
Right.
I'm 31 years old. I didn't know who I was until I was 27. And not no slight against my mom. It's just that's where my mindset was. So I fast forward, and it started to grow like wildfire. So 2 speakers turned into 10 speakers. 10 speakers turned into 25 speakers. The regional tour turns into a nationwide tour. Now we have international speakers. So now we're contracted about 13 speakers. We have about 27 people that are in the pipeline right now that started the application process. But this tour embodies corporate growth through community development powered by a mindset makeover. Like, I had to completely change how I think in order for me to succeed. Like, I couldn't get a regular job. He has to completely change how an 11-year-old is supposed to think in order for him to do what he does. Like, we just been on a mini tour this weekend, and I never seen an 11, let alone an adult, work as hard as him and his mom has worked this past 4 or 5 days. You would think that they're on $1 million contract, but they're serving. He's living in his purpose, and that's what this tour embodies. So that's the premise of the tour. It's about making a change, making a difference. When we talk about Martin Luther King, like, they started the process. Now it's time for us to pick it up. And seeing people like Elijah Coles Brown and then being around that environment really, really motivates me to have the passion that I have.